late. Cleo, could you close the door, please?
Yeah.
Everybody's loud downstairs. Thank you. So, for those watching live or on replay, welcome to the Sunday night wonderful world of Generation X. Weekly dose of talking all things 70s, 80s, 90s, basically Generation X. Hey, Doreen, how are you? All messages there. Hey, Kristen. Hey, Cindy over on YouTube. What's going on, Cindy Buckner? Facebook's starting to come in a little bit, although I'm not seeing chat. Say hi if you are there. There we go. Kick the Colts' ass. Yes, Joan, we did. It was a good game, although also congratulations to those over in Chiefs Kingdom. I thought you guys went down. I thought you finally got your loss. I thought you finally ended your perfect season. But who would have thought the Denver Broncos kicker would miss a chip shot, allowing you guys to hold on to your perfect season? So hoping we take you down next week, but it is what it is. Yeah, Cindy, I just said it. You're 9-0, but most definitely received a gift from Denver. Should not have been that close. Hoping that shows some weakness in your game. Hoping we get to take you down. Joyce Freeman, how are you, sweetheart? Good to see you. Joyce, Joan Berkney, Joe Schmidt from Minnesota coming in. Tammy Elaine, how are you? Julie or Jolie, good to see you. Sarah, how are you? Sarah and Sheila, I see you as well. Yeah, I know I'm a little late today. I was posting a video and I was just trying to get it just right. And I was doing the editing and I kept thinking, do I finish it later or do I push it out now? And I just had to finish it. So I finished it. I pushed it out and then jumped on as quickly as possible. But I'll give you guys a preview since you're here and not watching the video. Who remembers McGruff, the crime dog? Hey, Andrew, good to see you. Hello, Lori. Do you guys remember McGruff helped McGruff take a bite out of crime? Like everything else, us growing up, everything else we grew up with, everything's great, Lisa. Thank you. Okay, so Sarah remembers. Sheila remembers McGruff. Oh, Stacy actually saw the video. So this was like, once again, how Gen X learned things, right? It's not like parents took the time to warn us about danger in the world. We were watching television and McGruff would come on and tell us to take a bite out of crime. And he would tell us, not to approach cars with strangers in them, not to, tell people where we live. It was a good thing. JTR, the serial killer, actually had a McGruff crime dog stuffed animal. So everybody remembers McGruff. Here's the deal. The voice of McGruff, John Morales. Does anybody know anything about him? I didn't. I certainly had no idea. What's going on, David? I was a little late, definitely. So John Morales, who was the voice of the animated McGruff, the crime dog, is actually serving a 16-year sentence in prison because he was found guilty after some law enforcement agency apparently found over 1,000 marijuana plants in his possession that he had for distribution. And no matter how you feel about marijuana and whether that's reason enough to lock him up, they also found over something like 9,000 rounds of ammunition and a grenade launcher in his possession. So McGruff is doing time. So right now he's basically been in prison since 2011 and trying to make sure no one takes a bite out of him. So how is that for Gen X? Like even the things that were telling us to be safe, even that's somehow messed up. I'm like, I thought that was so Gen X. And I start the video by saying, like, just like anything else Gen X, when we hear stories, we're like, yeah, that sounds about right. That seems like exactly, that's it, Lawrence, you nailed it. That's exactly what I said in the video. That when we hear it, our immediate reaction isn't like, oh my God, wow, that's so messed up. No, our immediate reaction is, yeah, sounds about right. Doreen says peer pressure must have gotten to him. Michelle's reaction is, wow, that figures. Everyone has skeletons. Hey, Sherry, I'm doing well. Thank you. How are you? Tony Todd has passed away at the age of 69. Thank you, Jane. I appreciate that. Those are rookie numbers, says Kevin. Wirehead, good to see you, buddy. How's things? Great Bills game today. It was nice to have the first, not be like sweating it out in the first half. It was enjoyable. We wouldn't accept anything less. My life with crime was different. My grandfather was a DPS trooper here in Texas. My stepfather was a Bureau of Criminal Investigations, BCI investigator for the New York State Police. And I grew up in a diner. My parents owned a diner, and literally a quarter mile down the road from the diner was the state troopers barracks. So we had state troopers that would come through and grab lunch or breakfast or dinner or coffee or donuts 3, 4, 5 times a day. So if I did anything growing up, if I was at a party by the lake and they broke it up and saw me, had a hard time getting me live, Tony. I'm sorry to hear it, but I'm here now. No matter what I did, it would make its way to the diner. So I had to I remember being at a party by the lake and it got broken up. Hank Krasuki, father of a good friend of mine, he was a trooper at the time. He showed up and I just heard his voice as the troopers came in to break it up, not to really arrest anybody. Back then, they just sent us on our way, which, come to think of it now, might not have been the safest thing they could have done as we were drinking the entire time we were there, but they just kind of sent us on our way. But I knew that if Hank saw me, that the next morning it would have come to my parents' attention that I was there. So I had to like hide in the back trunk of a car until we got out of there. Where did I grow up? I grew up in Wayne County, New York, in a very small town called Wolcott, New York, midway between Rochester and Syracuse, right on the lake. Kind of think Mayberry, but the 70s. Nothing but cornfields and apple orchards. And when I tell you everybody knew everybody, everybody knew everybody. Hey, what's going on, Yimmy? What are we doing? New here? Well, welcome. It's just we get together every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Why 8 p.m.? Because for a lot of us growing up, Sunday night at 8 p.m. was the time when we all got in front of the television and watched The Wonderful World of Disney. It is a very special hour to Gen Xers as we think back and realize that sitting there on the carpet, on the floor, because back then kids were on the floor. That was eye level with TV, and the couches were for our adults. We would just sit there and watch, and we didn't realize that all across America and beyond, other Gen Xers were doing exactly the same thing. So now, those of us that want to get together here every Sunday night at 8 p.m. and get together. Sounds like small, big town Chattanooga. Sherry says, I was always on the floor. TV time. My grandpa lived in Ithaca. Yeah, not too far from Ithaca. 6 p.m. in Central Time. It was the best. It was really incredible. And thank you. I got this shirt thrifting contest, actually. I don't think, people always say we never knew how good we had it. The Wonderful World of Disney was an example of must-see TV for us. If we weren't there at 8 p.m. right when it started, then we missed it. And they played some of the most amazing stuff, whether it was, movies that they brought to television, or whether it was Disney classics, or whether it was new stuff that they put on just for that hour. Parents, for the most part, left us alone for that hour. See, if you're younger and you grew up in a world where you had your own television, or forget television, everybody today has their own personal screens. Growing up, we didn't have our own personal screens. And especially in the mid to late 70s, there often was just one TV in the house. So we shared that viewing experience with our parents, and kids back then, it wasn't about us. We weren't the main characters of the story. Our parents were. So more often than not, we watched what our parents wanted to watch, and we just sat quietly, tried to be as invisible as possible so they wouldn't send us to bed. But The Wonderful World of Disney, Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom, there were certain hours that our parents just let us have them, and that was one. Buffalo Bills played today's game against the Indianapolis Colts and won. Let's see. Sherry says 1 TV, 4 channels. We grew up between 2 cities, like right between Rochester and Syracuse. And if you grew up in a town next to 2, then you benefited by getting double channels. We had 2 ABCs. We had two NBCs. We had two CBS. So we got, sometimes they'd be different stuff. So that helped. Tammy Elaine says, do you remember the movie Escape to Witch Mountain? One of my absolute favorites as a kid. They did an okay remake. Showed my now 12-year-old that movie, and she absolutely loved it. And she loved the original. As a kid, that's the first time I wanted to play the harmonica was because of that movie. And Return from Witch Mountain, absolutely. John says I was born in 82 and we only had one TV. By the 80s, I think I had my own TV, or my brother and I, we shared a room. We had a 19-inch black and white Emerson in our room. And that was usually what happened with the kids. When we started getting Atari or Pong or in television, parents didn't want that on the main RCA, on the Magnavox, on the Zenith, not on the good TV. So they would buy a second TV, usually like 19 inches, almost always black and white, and that got shoved into our room. Elvira, the first Spacey's thing we were able to watch on TV. Yeah, Nick, let's go Bills. Small TV in bedroom. And I mean, we loved it. And it's like when I tell my kids, yeah, I watched black and white TV. It was two ways. There was still black and white programming when we were kids on television because we watched old reruns. We watched Leave It to Beaver, Flipper. We watched the Andy Griffith Show. We watched old episodes of Gilligan's Island, which were in black and white. I loved The Munsters, Addams Family, Get Smart. A lot of that stuff was in black and white, even when we were kids, even on a color television set. Twilight Zone, people are saying. I remember the oldest Bewitched episodes, maybe? Was that in black and white? Or no, I guess that might have been in color from the beginning. I Love Lucy, Sherry, definitely. Christine says, my dad repaired TVs. Yeah, back then there was a TV repairman. That was a normal thing, and you had to get your tubes replaced. The cathode ray tube, the tubes would run low, and TVs were big and heavy and expensive, so when they broke down, you repaired them. You didn't just replace them. Bewitched was recolored part of it. Okay, that makes sense. Good Sunday evening, Richard. Salutations, Deborah. I Dream of Jeannie. Were the early episodes there black and white? Mr. Ed definitely was. Wire hangers for antennas. I remember that. The Honeymooners. Yellowstone. Have a good night. Enjoy it, Don. I Love Lucy to this day holds up. My 12-year-old loves I Love Lucy. Bonanza was good. I remember that. Gunsmoke. Lost in Space. Car 54. You know, I'll get people that push back on me sometimes when I talk about TV. And they live on this theory that Gen Xers didn't watch TV, that we lived outside, that we were feral and free range and spent from 6 in the morning till 11 at night outside. Now, listen, we were outside a lot. My parents kicked us out of the house early and often. When my mom wasn't home, she didn't want us in the house. She certainly didn't want any of our friends in the house. So we did. We spent a ton of time outside. Hey, Nicole, good to see you. But when the streetlights came on, when it was raining, dude, I loved television. It was both. Mickey Mouse Show. I remember the early versions of the Mickey Mouse Club. I watched those in black and white. Greatest American Hero. We lived in the streets till the lights came on, or unless it was raining, or if it was inclement weather. But there was television that drew us in, without a doubt. Doringo's MacGyver taught us how to do things. I think we might have taught MacGyver how to do things, if I'm being honest. I might flip that on its head. Summer, yes, but school, no. Yeah, during the school year, we were inside more after our friends went down. And because there were, reruns on TV in the summer. So really, I don't think kids today understand that television stopped playing new stuff. Today, a season runs 6 to 12 episodes, and then it's gone for a while. When we were growing up, shows had 26, 28, 32 episodes in a season. And then it would go on reruns, and that's when we're like, all right, no need to be here. Now we're outside for sure. 4 hours of homework that we did alone, or prayed that we did alone. The only thing worse than doing my homework alone was doing my homework with one of my parents opting to help me. That was even worse than doing it alone. Three Stooges, MASH. Reruns felt like they lasted forever, PK. I agree with you. Teresa says, I was very limited on TV time. More time inside even during summer. Happy Days. Yeah, the homework thing, again, I preferred it alone. If for whatever reason My father took it upon himself to check and see what I was doing and to sit down and actually look at my homework. That was never a good thing. People joke about having to hold the flashlight for your dad while he's fixing something. Dad looking over my homework was even worse. Joyce, did you ever help Tracy with her homework? I gotta assume that was we were just left to do it alone. That was our job. Parents were like, go do it. And if they had to sit with us, then it usually was very little in the way of patience. Something was wholesome about Grizzly Adams, no lie there. My mom was a teacher. My homework was always checked. My parents asked if it was done. That was the beginning and end of it until the report card came home. If a progress report came home badly, then I was doomed. But as long as it was just expected, there was an expectation that I would do my work. So that was the beginning and end of it. They didn't really check. They didn't really verify. And if it turned out that I wasn't, if those progress reports came home, or if they intercepted a report card before I did and it was bad, which it never was, I was a little genius, then there was hell to pay. Joyce goes, are you crazy? So much smarter than I am. Nah, different stuff, that's all. Evening, Kevin. Good to see you coming in from Virginia. Parents got calls, not report cards. My parents didn't really get calls, but again, they wouldn't have been home to intercept the call anyway. So it either came in the mail or they didn't get contacted. I loved report card day, Rhoda. I got to tell you, the only trophies that were in my room, they not participation trophies, but the only trophies I ever earned were spelling bees or history bowls, debate. I was a geeky little dork. So I loved report card day because it meant that my brothers would squirm and I would shine. So yeah. At least until senior year, I started to fall off, I guess. At least we didn't have new math. True. Let's see. American Bandstand, Dick Clark. Dude. Signed it myself, says Brian. I don't remember having to have my report card signed and sent back. My favorite memory that I'll tell my kids is if you want to know what it was like growing up as a kid in the 70s and early 80s, one story rings true, and that's report card day at the end of the year when we found out whether or not we made it to the second grade or the third grade, who your teacher would be. Early on, we got those right in class. And I remember Donald Chrisman in the second grade finding out he was going to be held back, and he found out in that moment. And all of a sudden, you just saw him put his head down on his desk and start crying, and we were ruthless about it. Bob, no worries. I was late, too. Times tables, Brian? Absolutely. Another Gen X thing. Big old, my teacher had a little stopwatch, and he'd go around the room and mark your time down on your piece of paper. Whoever were the last 5 to finish, Mr. Young would force them to eat lunch in the classroom instead of going to the cafeteria and work on their multiplication tables. Did I ever sell blow pops or cinnamon sticks? No, Charles. Candy, yes, but it was more chocolate that I remember. I went from honors English sophomore year to, everything fell off once I got to be 17 or 18. It was more important to have fun than it was to do my work. Hey, Laura, how are you? Good to see you. Hope Quinn's there with you. Indoor recess. Indoor recess was cool. I'm amazing keeping up. I'm doing my best, Hot. Indoor recess was cool when they would break out things like the parachute or the gym scooters. Or we would play like some sort of cowboys and Indians, cops and robbers game where we would try to get each other out. That stuff was always fun. Cowboys and Indians? Yeah, we played Cowboys and Indians, Peanut. That was a thing we used to play as kids. Because you got to remember, like my daughter just chimed in. She's like, you played Cowboys and Indians? I'm like, yeah, we did. Westerns were still very much a thing, even on not just movies, not just The Lone Ranger, not just Bonanza or Gunsmoke or Big Valley. There was a lot of that stuff. I remember playing Cowboys and Indians. It's may not be politically correct today, but it's what we did. Cops and robbers too, and the robbers were the bad guys. You love Cops and Robbers? Yeah. You guys still play it? Yeah. Cool. Dodgeball. I did not like Dodgeball. Oh, Christy says revenge time with Dodgeball. Kevin's bringing up Dodgeball. Guys, I know it's an unpopular opinion, and I've mentioned this before. We called it War Ball, and I hated it. But I had good reason to hate Dodgeball. I wear contact lenses. My eyes went really bad around the second grade. And my glasses are thick enough to burn an ant on a sidewalk on a cloudy day. But back then, glasses were expensive. And I've talked about it before. Mr. Behe, I still remember the man, my gym teacher. My mother told him that if we play anything that could break my glasses, he was to take them. So I had to play dodgeball effectively blind. I was crippled. I was handicapped before the game was allowed to start. And believe me when I tell you, physically, I was basically handicapped to begin with. I was 40 pounds soaking wet. I was like a skeleton with a thin layer of skin over it. I was about as scrawny as it gets for a very long time. So blind and physically inept are not a good combination for dodgeball. Played handball, the volleyball in grammar school. I started wearing glasses at 1 year old. Cindy, I probably needed them that early. They didn't catch on. I just remember getting closer and closer to the classroom because I could see less and less. But I remember the teacher sending home a note or the nurse saying Johnny might need glasses. And my parents like, no, he's fine. My older brother didn't need them, so it was assumed I wouldn't need them. Johnny was the target of opportunity, and easy targets are the best ones. Irish, I even went so far as to take my ball and just loft it into the air, hoping someone would catch it, because that also got you out. But the gym teacher would yell, nobody catch it if they throw it up on purpose. Ran into walls, no doubt. Glasses in second grade. Who remembers playing with the parachute in gym? That was a magical day. We called it warball too. I don't know why dodgeball was. Yeah, it was definitely warball for us. Red Rover. I enjoyed Red Rover. Who's Johnny? I was Johnny back then anyway. I don't like dodgeball, but I think it's good character builder and builds thick skin. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It also was a cheap way to amuse us kids. So things like it was very inexpensive for rural schools just to throw a bunch of balls for an hour and say have at it. There were no equipment involved and it was cheap. So that's why we all did it. Irish, congratulations, celebrating 4 months on YouTube as an honorary Xer. Big red bouncy things we would race. I do remember those. Did we climb the rope? You know what amazes me? That rope wasn't the problem. I remember the rope. I weighed nothing. And even weighing nothing, I had the upper body strength of a 98-year-old woman with the worst case of osteoporosis. No, I was weak. But I still would get high enough that I would look down and they put like a 1-inch thick mat on the floor like that was going to save us. If we fell from that rope, that mat was doing nothing but keeping blood off the floor. Mighty, thank you so much. Are kids born in 1980 Zennials or Gen X? The answer is yes. So Gen X goes from 1965 to 1980. They've carved out a small group that say that they relate to both Gen X and millennial memories. So people that are born from like 1980 to 85, they've carved out this little Zennial group. So they're both. But if you're born in 80, technically, sociologically speaking, you are Gen X, but it all is whatever you relate to. Who froze a snowball in the freezer? Not me, but it had one thrown at me. What happened to boomerangs? Boomerangs became popular, I think, because of Crocodile Dundee. Once Crocodile Dundee went away, so did the boomerangs. Brian, what do you think? I see you over there, 1981. Do you relate as a Zennial, a Millennial, or a Generation Xer? Zennials were originally Gen Y. Actually, it's the Millennials that were considered Gen Y. They just got renamed. So Generation Y was a stopgap. It was just a placeholder. And then they eventually switched them over to Millennials. Generation X was a placeholder as well. They just never decided to change it for us. Got 69, 68, 61, 79 over on the Facebook side. Dad Bod Veteran made that term popular. Zennial. Remember when saving Campbell's soup labels for school? Yeah, one of the biggest spankings I remember getting was because I took all the labels off all the cans at our house. And my mom was not amused because it was just guess what was in. And back then, like, you had to open the can. There was no resealing it. What's going on, Jeffrey Thomas, my friend? X was the undefined. And they never bothered to define us. They're like, good enough. Stay X. Yeah, I took off every single label because I wanted to win the contest. The same thing happened to me with box tops. I was a slow learner. After the spanking for taking off every label on the Campbell soup cans, I ripped off the top to every cereal box we had in the house, whether we needed to or not. So, like, there were 4 boxes of Frosted Flakes open because of me. That probably was a spanking, too. Michael says, I have the original jarts that I got for my 12th birthday. That's very cool. 1962 would technically make you a boomer, Lynn, but it is what it is, and you get to pick. Some late boomers call themselves Generation Jones. They're basically the boomer version of Zennials, just because they say that they kind of relate to both generations. Again, if it makes you, if you relate, then you relate. And one thing about Gen X, maybe boomers, maybe older millennials, we never liked labels. We did everything we could to unlabel ourselves. Don't box me in. That was something we really railed against. We'll be what we'll be when we'll be it. And labels were really something we didn't like. We didn't want to be boxed in. And today, younger kids have taken a different point on it. They're putting themselves voluntarily in these tiny little niches and boxes. And I don't agree with it. I don't think it's a good thing. Pantry was off limits for us until after supper, lest you enjoyed the wooden spoon, says Irish. We didn't have a pantry. A lot of cupboards. I don't remember having a pantry. Gen X and married to a boomer. Boppers were the best, were the greatest snack ever. I don't remember what boppers are, Sean. Hose water made us stronger. Hose water, and people like, why did you guys drink hose water? I'm like, because that's where the water was. You didn't have a sink, you didn't have filter, you didn't have. No, we had all those things. It was inside, and that's where we weren't allowed. Matthew asks me, favorite cartoon growing up? I was a comic book kid, so Super Friends or anything superhero related would have been my favorites. I remember getting up at 8 o'clock on Saturday because Super Friends kicked off my Saturday morning. He-Man was good, but I was a little older by the time that came along. Pantry is a cupboard. Yeah, but like our pantry now is like this giant thing with 2 doors that's like its own little room. We didn't have anything that big growing up. Hi, John from Maureen. How's my evening going? Sharing it with about 400 of my closest friends. Speed Racer was fun. Pink Panther, Tom and Jerry. Maddie Gordon is in the house. Dude, where have you been? Good to see you. I owe you a phone call, man. Thundercats. Smurfs. Smurfs, my younger brother liked. I found them annoying. Captain Caveman was awesome. Jabberjaws, I remember. Thundar the Barbarian. Bugs Bunny, Roadrunner Hour. Cartoons were the best. It amazes me that doesn't exist anymore. But when you think about it, kids don't need Saturday morning cartoons. They can go to YouTube and watch anything they want anytime they want to watch it.
I don't do that.
You can, though. If you want to watch Super Friends from 1978, you can right now. If you want to watch the Smurfs right now, you can. We had to wait all week to be able to do it. And if we missed it, we missed it. But it was something we waited for all week. And we ran to the bathroom on commercials because we couldn't pause it. If we didn't hear something right, we couldn't rewind it. It was just, and somehow in a crazy way, it feels better that way. It seems better that way, even though it meant we miss stuff. When everything is available, nothing is special. And I think we live in a world where less and less things are becoming special. We're coming into the holiday season. It's not special. The Thanksgiving specials, the Christmas specials that we waited all year for, that our parents would yell from inside, hey, Rudolph's on, or our older brother would yell because our parents weren't home yet, or the neighbors would say, hey, chitty chitty bangs. Those were special, but when it's not special anymore. It's always available. I just don't think it's as good. Sigmund and the Sea Monster, Land of the Lost. So many good shows. Sunday night Disney movies. That's why we're here at 8 o'clock on a Sunday night Eastern time, because this is the time slot. The Year Without a Santa Claus. Gina, is that the one that, or is it Santa Claus is Coming to Town? One was my favorite because it actually told the story of Santa Claus. So we learned why we hung our stockings up on the fireplace. That was the one I loved a lot. I loved all of those claymation stories, though. Those were awesome. Everything was special because it wasn't all the time. Debbie, exactly right. Sherry says, one time a year, Wizard of Oz. Yeah. And there were years where I missed it. And you'd go to school the next day, and your friends, the first thing they'd say when you saw them is, "Hey, did you watch Captain? Did you watch Wizard of Oz last night? Did you see this was on last night?" And you're like, "No." Rankin Bass shows were special. They were the best. Do you know where Astoria, Oregon is? Actually, C2XU, the owner of the current Goonies house, has invited me out to Astoria, Oregon, to go check out the house. And someday I'd like to get out that way. I have an open invite, just haven't had the time to get out there yet. And when I do go out, I'd like to go to Bend, Oregon as well and visit the last remaining Blockbuster Video. Christmas Story, Brian, I like it more now than I did then, but it's still not one of my favorites. I don't know why. Did I watch the Charlie Brown special last night? No, Debbie, I missed it. I worked last night, so that's part of the problem. Whole Oregon coast is beautiful, including Astoria. Bozo the Clown mornings. We watched The Sound of Music. Oh, yeah, that was a big one. Agreed, Rain. What's my favorite? I hated it as a kid, but the older I get, for whatever reason, It's a Wonderful Life, I really love watching that movie. I really, really love watching it, and I don't know why. I do get angry that Potter gets away with stealing the money. Like, if there is a flaw in that movie, it's that he takes what is the equivalent. I once did the math that, adjusted for inflation, the money that Mr. Potter stole was like over $114,000. And at the end of the movie, although he doesn't get to take over the savings and loan, he keeps that money. And I always thought that was a flaw in it. The one thing about Gen X movies, Gen X era shows, in the 70s and the 80s, the bad guy always learned a lesson. The Scooby-Doo story, at the end, he would have gotten away with it except for those darn kids. That's what I didn't like about It's a Wonderful Life, is he gets away with it. I love Home Alone. I see somebody wrote there. Yeah, just for, was it Thursday night? I don't know, Matt. Don't hold me to anything. I'm old and I'm confused. My father-in-law and brother-in-law visiting. I was hanging out with them. That's what it was. I knew it was some reason I wasn't watching television. My father-in-law is visiting from Rochester, so our television has been converted to Greek television at the moment. 24 hours a day, Greek TV. Scrooge is a great, great movie. Die Hard, absolutely a Christmas movie, as is Gremlins. Kevin, Ernest annoyed the hell out of me. I know that's not popular, but he did. Todd, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. One of my favorite Thanksgiving era movies and one of my favorite movies all along. What's going on, John? Good to see you. Polar Express, I love watching with my kids. That's a movie from their generation that I share with them and enjoy. Scrooge with George C. Scott. Polar Express is amazing. My wife thinks the kids look creepy. The animation bothers her. And Cleo, you don't like the animation either, right?
Of what?
Polar Express?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
No, it kind of scares me. I still like the movie. I don't know why people don't like it.
I love the movie. I love the music.
Yeah.
Airplane was funny. I actually have Airplane right there. I've said before, I watched Airplane with my daughter about 2 years ago. She was about 10 years old, and I saw that it was PG, not PG-13, so I thought it would be okay to watch with her. I was wrong. Irish Lover says, check out the alternative ending from the SNL episode of It's a Wonderful Life. Irish, I've seen it. I think it's awesome. That is hilarious that you would bring that up. Also, thank you for the $5. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. You guys are the best. Anybody donating on Facebook side, I noticed a couple have subscribed to the page. Thank you for the subscriptions. That 99 cents a month lets you into our private Facebook group, and I appreciate it. Thank you for those who continue to renew that month after month. Did I know that Cherie Curry was married to Robert Hayes? I don't know who Cherie Curry is. Hot Chick showing off all the stickers for being a subscribed member on YouTube. Colleen says, watch Fast Times with my son, also not appropriate. Christine, thank you. I appreciate that. I just checked Love American Style and during daytime when it was on ABC. Yeah, on Facebook, somebody just asked, how do we subscribe? At the very bottom, you should see a thing that says subscribe for exclusive benefits. That's where you do that. What do I think of Mork and Mindy's arena? I think anything Robin Williams touched was magical, including Mork and Mindy. How do I sign up, Diane? Again, it's right at the very bottom. It says where you see subscribe to get exclusive benefits, or you can always just go right to my main page and sign up there. Sarah says, every time I thought a movie would be awesome to share, I remember that PG was different back in our day. And Sarah, thank you also for the $5. I appreciate you. Yeah, PG. So when you look at what PG stands for, that's all you got to know. So PG, it would always come on, especially on the TV, parental guidance. But then they followed up with is suggested. This program may be unsuitable for young viewers, so parental guidance is suggested. It was a suggestion. It wasn't a mandate. And our parents just took that suggestion and said, Jaws was PG. Exactly. And even, let's be honest, R-rated movies, did anybody ever stop anyone from going in? I literally remember walking in to see Porky's, to see Risky Business, to see all kinds of movies I had no business seeing at ages I had no business watching them. And I wouldn't let my kids do it, but it didn't hurt me. There's a lot of things we did that didn't hurt us, but we wouldn't let our kids do it. Porky's was bad. Porky's was bad. The things we laughed at on Porky's, boys drilling a hole to peep in on girls in their locker rooms, and we laughed at it. It was bad. It's problematic. It's inappropriate. It's wrong. Funny as hell, though, for us. Brian goes, what about Halloween? For me, I'm a Friday the 13th, and I liked them all. Friday the 13th, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street. Those are my big three. I love scary movies. Can we call it a tallywhacker? We can call it a tallywhacker. Meat. Hot shower calling my... Dude, it was bad. It's even movies like Breakfast Club now kids are looking at and saying how problematic the movie was. And to me, Breakfast Club is like second to it's like a biblical importance for Generation X, high school years. But the scene where Molly Ringwald is sitting at the table. I just got stuck there. I had to reboot. And Judd Nelson is under the table, underneath her seat, looking up her skirt. I remember as a kid, I'm talking kid, middle school, maybe even grammar school, boys trying to look up girls' skirts. So we were curious, but that behavior was, although not necessarily allowed, it was boys being boys. It's inappropriate. It's wrong. But that's what it was. You girls can tell me, was that a horrifying experience? Boys snapping your bras, trying to look under your skirts. It was wrong. But it's what it was. Hey, Jason, good to see you. I mean, I can't speak to it from a boy's perspective. I feel now as a father of two daughters, saying boys being boys feels like an out for boys being inappropriate. Debbie says it was boys being boys. Chicks can't hold their smoke. It happened. Marianne says, yes, I hated it. And I get that. So we do evolve over time, right? We get better. As Gen X parents, we saw things. Mickey says, I punched the dude for snapping my bra. Now that's the appropriate response. Girls could take care of themselves, could handle themselves. Some of the things I see happening today, you know, Kimberly's responding, we were bad, boys being boys, so inappropriate. Some of the things I see today are even worse. In an era of everybody being hypersensitive to a lot of things for the best of intentions, take care, Todd, thank you. I think some of the things we're seeing today are worse. I almost did a video and pulled back today. There is this movement of boys, high school, middle school, college, thinking that they're helping to move some sort of political movement. What movement? I don't know. I'm sure it's being blamed on the right because that's where the boys are seeing it. But listen, I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat, if you're conservative or liberal. I don't care if you are independent or fascist or socialist. There is this thing where boys are direct messaging girls, saying to them, laughing at them, and because of what they think is going on in this political atmosphere, they're saying things like, your body, my choice. That's the terminology. Now, I got to tell you, as a Gen X dad of 2 daughters, if I heard some boy say, your body, my choice to a young lady, I don't care what your political affiliation is, I probably would strongly make them regret the fact that they said such a thing and basically get out alive. And if a Gen X woman were to hear a guy say that to another girl, they'd be lucky if they got out alive, period. And I don't care what. If you're a Republican, you're like, no, that's not okay. If you're a Democrat, you're like, that's not okay. If I had sons, I'd be sitting down with them and saying, listen, this is not okay. If this is something you know that's going on, it needs to stop right now. I don't care what side you think it's coming from. It ends right now. I don't get it. That's not boys being boys. It's just mean now. Everyone is so isolated in where they think they belong that they're crossing lines all over the place. John says our principal would have stomped our brains in if we ever tried to peek under a girl's skirt. Absolutely. There were consequences to our behavior. Consequences are missing today. I told my daughter she would not get in trouble if she finished that conversation. Yeah, I mean, just it doesn't matter where they think it's coming from. It's wrong. Period. End of story. Wrong. Christina says, hey, I finally caught a live. I adore you so much. You always and other Gen X people bring me so much joy remembering things that I'd forgotten about. Thanks for re-traumatizing me. Christina, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for the support. Consequence needs to come back. There is a right and wrong way to it. And we made mistakes growing up, but we paid a heavy price for our fuck-ups. F around and find out was so real for us. And I just think, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't think there is much consequence out there. And these kids will get it in the end. I think life will teach them in the end. Christopher says discipline is missing. I'm as guilty about that as anyone because I think we were over-disciplined. I may have overcorrected. I think our generation may have overcorrected. But if what we didn't teach our kids, I promise you life will. Eventually it's coming. Thank you, Stacy. I appreciate it. Bring back FAFO. I think it's coming back, Sarah, whether they wanted to or not, because no matter how soft may have been with our kids, all of a sudden, a generation of kids that I'm trying to be as impartial as possible. I'm trying not to lay blame. An entire generation of kids that maybe grew up soft is finding it very difficult. Oh, so it's already there. JTR just said it. The lessons are coming in the workforce. A generation that was brought up softer than we were is now at a point in their lives where they're entering the workforce, where there's certain responsibilities coming and they're crumbling underneath the weight. Statistically speaking, there's no debate. They are being fired in record numbers. They are quitting in record numbers. Their life will teach them. Life is impartial and unfair. Joan says, always a pendulum. Thomas says, yes, I am soft. D says, they need us. Aaron says, I did a lot of stuff I shouldn't have, but I learned from watching my older brother get in trouble. I just worked really hard to not get caught. I look like an 180-year-old version of Tom Cruise. I'll take that, Katie Jones. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. I hate it when people are on their phones when you go to a restaurant. Meh. Today's managers are the worst, though. Cece, I got to tell you, I think managers have always sucked, but I think bosses have always been bad. Joe Gallo, Joycey, and there's people here from my hometown. My first boss, Joe Gallo, was what I thought at the time was like a 70-year-old Italian guy. He probably was in his mid-30s. I just thought he was old. He would routinely tell me that if I didn't find a second gear, he was going to break his foot off in my ass, and I don't think he was joking. He literally would pick me up by the back of my neck and toss me in the direction he thought I should go. So it was tough back then, too. Hokie says bartender, servers, and line cooks are the best in most places. That's cool. Mean comment, Cole. I'm better looking. Listen, if Cole thinks he's going to hurt my one remaining feeling with a comment like that, it's not going to happen. Gen Z is freaking out. It's just, I see two sides of Z. Again, it's either really soft or really hard. It's very little in between. Joycey says he was 30 or 40. Joyce, I swear to God, I thought he was like 60. And there was also this woman who was like the bookkeeper. Her name was Esther. And I don't think I ever saw her outside of this office in the back, but I thought she was like 120 years old. We thought people were so old. Not all employees can be managers or supervisors. Gen Z needs a better work ethic. They're doing the best they know how to do. I will lightly poke fun of Gen Z on my page. But I also have a lot of Gen Z watching. And I like the fact that they're engaging. I'll play with the kids at work and I'll ask them questions or have them try to tell time. And it's okay. They'll mess up and then we'll talk about it. And they're hardworking kids, but they are what they were created to be. And if we don't like what they are, well, then they'll change. Let's see. The kids at my job seem too much in their feelings. Cindy, that's not just you. That is a statistic. Most bosses that are having problems with Generation Z, it's because they're not allowed to see beyond their feelings. So we told our kids. So we were told, don't cry or I'll give you something to cry about. We were told to not think about it when something was bad. We were told just ignore it. It'll go away. Don't worry about it. Walk it off. Rub some dirt on it. We stifled emotions, right? So then when we had our kids, I think my daughters would be the first to tell you, I ask them, how are you feeling? What's going on? Express yourself. We just didn't give them an off button. So that sometimes, thank you so much, Phaedra? I might have gotten that wrong. Talk about your feelings, but God's sake, leave some of it. Just keep some of it to yourself. Talk of young people going to vote, not knowing the importance of a signature. I do not refer to my managers as my boss. Only two bosses in my life, and it was my parents. My kids hate that I ask too much or so much. Have them try to make change. That will not go over well. I have two millennials, says Gina. Mine are Gen Z and a Gen Alpha, although the Alpha does not want to admit to being an Alpha.
Oh my gosh, stop it.
We were ignored, so we're making up for it now. That's what it is, Val. We as parents try to make up for what we thought we were missing as kids. And our parents were busy. For the first time in history, mothers in large numbers were also working. We were home alone, and we loved it. But as adults, we look back on it and wanted to be there more for our kids, so we made different choices. Was that the Alpha in the background? It absolutely was the Alpha in the background. She's working on some homework, but she just wanted to be here.
Yeah.
How's the homework coming, Peanut?
Good.
Good? Almost done?
Yeah.
Why hasn't Cleo popped over my shoulder to say hi? Because she's working on schoolwork at the moment. Say hi, Cleo.
Hi.
That's her.
I'll be on in a little bit, probably.
Didn't have to ask Trace. Everyone in town told me. Well, Joycey, that's the thing. So Joyce Freeman over on the Facebook side was like a second mom to me. And a lot of my friends' mothers were like second mothers. And if I was out of line, I don't think Joyce would have thought twice to backhand me on the side of the head. They had authority to scold us, to reprimand us. Any adult that knew your full legal name had right to just correct you if they saw fit. And they did it out of care. No, not paper and pencil homework, I'm afraid. Everything or most things are on a computer right now. Mighty says they'll come get you through the telephone. Without a doubt, buddy. And thank you for the $2 support. Appreciate you. We accepted it as kids. I don't remember being mad when Mrs. Freeman corrected me. I don't remember being angry that Mrs. Parker called me out or that Mr. Parker gave me a swat because I said something inappropriate. We accepted it. And we needed it, if I'm being honest, because since our parents weren't home, but for the fact that every neighbor in the neighborhood, every adult was a surrogate parent, that's probably what kept us alive. Cleo has her dad wrapped around her finger. Bob, I will not disagree with that. Way to go, Bills. Good night, Andrew. Good to see you, buddy. Parents don't pay for the stuff after a certain age. Get a job. They could lay hands on you, and it's just what happened, without a doubt. Now, I find out my 12-year-old comes home and says my neighbor smacked her. I'd have a problem with it. So there's this dichotomy. I talk about it being okay back then, but I wouldn't like it now. I don't want somebody putting hands on my daughter. It's this weird thing. We are such a generation of contradiction. It's weird. It just is what it is, though. Plus, we are home, though. My wife was home. We made a lot of sacrifices to make sure that one of us was home. So there's no need for a teacher to lay hands on my daughter. We've got it under control. But growing up, my parents would have spanked me again if they found out I got hit in school. Can I go through all the generations and the dominating stereotypes? Sure, we can go through real quick. I mean, silent generation is probably the generation that raised probably 60% of Generation X. They run from the 20s into the early 40s. Hey, Tina Borelli, thank you so much. I appreciate you. More support on the YouTube side. I did see a couple more people subscribe on the Facebook side. Thank you. Silent generation, basically, they're the ones that walked softly and carried a big stick. That was the truth. If you had silent gen parents, they didn't say a lot, but if you got on the wrong side of them, that was the Sarah. Thank you for moderating. I appreciate you. Yeah, politics, guys, not a need for it here. You're allowed your opinion. You're allowed to absolutely feel the way you feel because you lived the life you lived. So it's okay. I don't have a problem disagreeing with people because that just meant they have a different life experience than I do. But these pages, YouTube, Facebook, this place is about what brings us together, not what separates us. So although I don't have a problem with politics as per se, and I would, if I were to have a beer with you, we could talk and have a great time. We just don't need it here. Take it on for me. Guys, I appreciate you, Wire. I probably will see you on Tuesday, if not Friday. Silent Gen didn't mess around. They were a very unselfish, very just drive, go to work. They were driven. They did what they needed to do. They had a strong case of right and wrong, and they would beat the shit out of you if you disagreed. Their next generation coming over, starting, I think, in 1945, was the baby boomers. And the baby boomers ran until 1964. Now, the boomers, and those of you that are on here, don't take this the wrong way, but they were nicknamed the me generation because they were among the first generations to begin to realize that they were able to do things for themselves. Even as adults, even as parents, they felt and were one of the first generations to feel that they didn't have to constantly only work and just be there as a thing, that they were a person. They were the first generation where women felt that they could do things, that they could make choices. This sense of me, of self, led to higher divorce rates because they had a right to be happy. So their happiness kind of overtook older millennials and younger Gen Xers' importance because our parents got divorced in record numbers because the parents started thinking about themselves. My parents are boomers, says Shelley, and so is my late husband's. Yeah, it's truly silent gen and baby boomers raised us. They were also, to Kevin's point, the hippie generation. But again, a lot of that, by Rhoda, good seeing you, was this sense of I want to be happy, I want to do for me. They were the Dr. Spock generation, and in a lot of ways, selfish without a connotation of a bad thing. They were selfish because they thought about themselves. When other generations previously, the greatest gen and the silent gen, really didn't. Vacations for baby boomers were centered around the parents, not the kids. They were also the first commercial generation where both parents worked because they wanted stuff. 2 cars, not 1. And then there's us as Gen X, and we're just the best generation on the face of the planet. We are the latchkey gen. We are the MTV generation. We worked young. We played hard. We drank younger than we should have. We worked younger than we should have. We're just this weird little generation that went from no tech to all tech. And I think that's pretty cool. Millennials come in during 1981. And they are probably the first generation that really embraced technology as it came flying through. They grew up with it being a huge part of what they did. Followed by Gen Z, who was basically iPad babies. They've had it since birth. Silent generation is the one who lived through World War I. Actually, I appreciate it, Irish. In terms of the United States, at least, we called that the greatest generation. So the one that went from the 20s to 40s, that was World War I, we refer to as the greatest generation, then followed by the silent generation. But the greatest generation is that World War I generation. What state am I in, sir? I am in South Carolina, right on the North Carolina border. But Irish, thank you so much. I appreciate the 10 spot. Thank you again, guys. I really, really can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys helping to support me in the page. Means a lot. We were the cassette tape survivors. D, we went through it all. The oldest of Gen Xers remember our parents having records and 8 tracks, and then us buying cassettes, and then replacing the cassettes with CDs, and then replacing the CDs with hard discs that we burned, CDs that we burned ourselves. Thank you. I like the shirt too. I taught the World War I generation was the lost generation. A couple different names, but again, they start with, like, we have different names. We started off being the 13th generation. That was our name because we were the 13th generation to come along as they counted them. We were also called the MTV generation. We were also called the Forgotten generation. We were also called the Latchkey generation. But Gen X is the one that's stuck. And X just really, more than anything else, is a variable because so much about us is variable. I'm a boomer born in 61, a mix of hippie boomer and relate to a lot of Gen X. I love that, Joanne. Chris, this pretty country part of the world, I'm going to miss it now that I'm no longer an OTR driver. Our Gen has seen constant fighting since the 60s. Slacker generation, Kevin, absolutely. Thomas, thank you so much. Go Bills. Yeah, the slacker thing was not well deserved, and I think what Gen Z doesn't understand is that we can relate to them in so many ways. Right now, they're getting called lazy. They're getting called a lot of names, and I don't know if some of it's earned, some isn't, but we got called the same names. Now, the big slacker part of us, though, I remember for me, I graduated college in the early 90s. And I remember leaving college and having my Series 6 and 63 financial license, my life and health degrees. My life and health, I couldn't get a job. Like the jobs that I thought would be waiting for me because of the economic downturn of the time, baby boomers were not retiring, not out of greed, but their 401ks got destroyed. So they stayed much longer than they otherwise would have. And those were our jobs. So we ended up taking like McJobs. We took jobs that necessitated a name tag. And we're like, all right, well, if I'm not going to have a serious job, then don't expect me to be serious about it. So we would go to show up at work, but we'd go out all night the night before. Slacker was a thing deserved for me, but I figured it out quick after I was asked not to move with my dad, stepmom. Yeah, I was slacker-ish, but when I found out I couldn't get a job in financial services the way I wanted to, then I bartended 4 nights a week, made more money than my friends who were actually in jobs, and just had fun for a while. And I don't regret it today. I don't regret it today. Jessica, I think is who it was. You have my prayers. Karina, prayers for me. I had lost both my parents, my dad in 2023, stepdad in 2023, and mom in 2024. God bless you. Absolutely have my prayers and thoughts. And we're at the age where we're all losing people, guys. If you're lucky enough to still have your parents in your life, be blessed. It's crazy. We're there. We see it even not just parents. We see it with celebrities we grew up watching. There's very few weeks or months that go by. Irish, thank you so much for your service for sure. Very few months that go by that somebody that I grew up watching doesn't pass on. This year alone, we lost a lot of icons. And even though we don't know them, even though they're not like our parents or our aunts or our uncles or our neighbors, there's this feeling that we lose something as they pass. Taro says it's the musicians that blow me away. Tina Turner, I felt personally affected by it. It's weird because, again, I don't know them, and yet there's this sadness. James Earl Jones, when he passed, there was this sadness. Toby Keith. And I think that's a good thing that we can connect to those people. Today, we know too much about these actors. We know too much about our celebrities and our singers to the point that we find out that we disagree with them on so many things sometimes that it makes us not enjoy who they are. We celebrities and sports stars, you find out that they're beating their girlfriends or they're doing that. I liked when we didn't know things about them. It made it easier to connect with them. We lost the Candyman today. Death of Eddie Van Halen destroyed me. That was a tough one for me too. Quincy Jones, so many things. We feel lost because we know their talent is rare. I would agree with that. And guys, yes, I'm seeing all these veterans on the page. God bless you all. I appreciate you as we come upon this Veterans Day on Monday. Not only do I appreciate your sacrifice, I appreciate the sleepless nights that your parents put up with, that the worrying that they had because their kids were serving. I appreciate the service and the sacrifice of your children and of your spouses. I totally appreciate you guys. I never served. I absolutely am very, very grateful to those that have.
Didn't Papa Pat?
Yeah, Papa Pat was in the Air Force for years. He served in Vietnam. Did you get your homework done?
Yep.
All done? All right. You're way too high. Still not over Robin Williams. That was a hard one for me. I remember when Freddie Mercury passed, the last message was, I think I am gay. I just saw the movie, the Queen movie, late. Got to run, 4:30 a.m. comes too quickly. God bless, Doreen. Thank you for being here. Glad I served and got a chance to see the world. Yeah, JTR, a lot of people that served are very grateful for their own service and glad they did it. I truly, truly honor our veterans. I think you guys stand up and say, I'm going to do it. And you all have your different reasons for doing so. But whatever your reasons, I'm so, so, so grateful. When Morgan Freeman goes, it's going to devastate me. Thank you so much, I'm Sherry. For me, every day, hey, Dan, my day's going great. I'm like, whenever somebody passes, I'm like, somebody got eyes on Carol Burnett? That's the one that's going to crush me. Not sound weird or anything, but respectfully, hella pretty, respectfully, sorry, not cause trouble and sound weird. Not at all, Gary. All good. Hey, Cleo, you're getting lots of hi, Cleos. The daughter looks like you. She's cute. Thank you. Yeah, some of the old, so a lot of times boomers will, there's no other word for it, like gatekeep a little and be like, hey, that was ours. That was our show. That was our actor. That was our generation. And I think they forget that we were watching too. Mom Cunningham is still kicking. Absolutely. Big social media presence. It's those older ones, the Bob Hope special actors that were on, the Carol Burnett's. We still relate to them. They were just, those were our earliest memories. And because they're our earliest memories, in some way, they're our most cherished memories. Stallone looks great at 77. The Incredible Hulk. Lou Ferrigno just turned 77, I think. Dick Van Dyke is another one.
Someone spelled my name right, actually.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Gina. Appreciate it. There's Joyce. He says, beautiful Cleo. Flip Wilson. Jerry Lewis Telethon was big every year. We talk about it every time that time of year comes by. Stallone is still acting. I guess he looks phenomenal. I mean, he looks great. Rolex chain generation. Got to come back. Thank you, Mighty. I appreciate you, buddy. Got to bounce out of Facebook. Have a great week. Stay safe. Thank you so much, Valerie. I appreciate you. Always wanted the truck from the Fall Guy. When I was really little, I remember wanting the car from Starsky and Hutch. I don't know why. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. Jimmy Carter. No, Kristen, that's not political. Listen, I've got a t-shirt that I wear that says Reagan Bush 84. I also have a t-shirt that says Clinton Gore. I don't wear them to be political, but those are huge parts of our lives. Jimmy Carter's the first president I actually remember. I was young, but I remember it. It's a big part of what shaped our past. I don't mind speaking politics through the lens of pop culture. Ronald Reagan, hey JT, welcome, buddy. Thank you for becoming a member. Ronald Reagan was a pop culture, very important to our pop culture. Things he said, things he did, the assassination attempt. It's okay. We should be able to remember it. I just like speaking politics from that lens where we can all agree on things, not to debate their policies. My dad's car looked like the Starsky and Hutch car. I'm very jealous, Shelley. 89 bicycles are the best. I don't know. My old Schwinn's from the early 80s, I was pretty happy. I had a Huffy 10-speed I loved. Space Shuttle speech I will never forget, Mighty. And I know he didn't write it, but he delivered it with heart. And that speech, that as a kid, that was awesome. Thank you so much, Darla. I appreciate that. Still want the Dodge Power Wagon from Simon and Simon. I thought I was the only one that remembered Simon and Simon. I loved that show for some reason. Ronald Reagan was my era. I thought he was good. Politics was tricky. I was told not to discuss them. Yeah, I was always I was told it was rude to ask a woman her age and anyone who they voted for. It was none of your business. I mean, I remember as a kid asking somebody those two things. How old are you? And then another time, what did you vote for? And my mom being like, you don't ask those questions. It's none of your business. Rockford Files. How old is my daughter? She's 12. She'll be 13 in January. But listen, it's November and I really needed to do a post and I haven't yet. So I'll just do it real quick here. It is November, which is National Prematurity Month. So the March of Dimes runs different events all month long because November is Prematurity Awareness Month. And Cleo was actually born 3.5 months early. Her due date was May 4th, and she was born January 24th, 3.5 months before that at 1 pound, 12 ounces. The amount of information that March of Dimes made available to us when we knew that we'd be having her early. My wife was on bed rest for 2 weeks in the hospital trying to hold off birth as long as possible. Absolutely incredible the work they're doing. If you can get out, if you can walk, if you can do something this month, there are millions upon millions of premature children born every day. The good news is 25-weekers like her are doing better now than they ever did. Medication that's available, the care they're able to get. Micro preemies are surviving at rates that we never thought possible. And today, 12 years later, I can't believe that she is the young lady she is. When I remember seeing her born at 1 pound, 12 ounces and just being petrified about the road in front of us. Just incredible. She's a fellow Aquarius. Somebody wrote, yeah, as am I. My birthday's February 1st. But yeah, if you can, it's a bigger problem than we know. My wife and I have 2 daughters. One is about to turn 21. She is 12. The gap in between is because my wife suffered through 8 different miscarriages between the 2 kids. Just born too early, each and every time. Oh, January 24th is Tammy's birthday too. You guys will celebrate together. Most women have suffered in silence when it comes to miscarriages and preterm losses, and organizations like the March of Dimes try to shine a light on it so they know they're not alone. And it's something I need to get out this month because it's near and dear to my heart. Thank you, Debbie. Appreciate that. It's just amazing to me, though, that she was just this little peanut, and now here she is. Dan says birthday's February 8th. Yeah, she wanted to be an Aquarius, so she came 3.5 months early to make sure. Thank him for his service for me, Anna. Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas. Love it. Big win today. Huge win today. Go Bills. There we go. My daughter was a preemie in 86. Dukes of Hazzard was one of my favorite shows, Gina. I think Daisy Duke was one of my early crushes. I'm sure Tom Wopat or John Schneider were a lot of your early crushes for the women. Give to the March of Dime whenever I'm asked. It's amazing the work they've done to help to make these things possible. I don't know if the Chiefs won, Lance, so much as Denver found a way to lose, but congratulations regardless. I'm worried about next week. I think you guys have us, but we'll meet again regardless. KC Refs got lucky today. I'm doing great, Johnny. How are you? David Hasselhoff is the greatest of all time. Not going to disagree. I almost died when I was born. I had the cord wrapped around my neck. Yeah, it amazes me that the God being God, like seriously, that's not something we could have done wirelessly. Like the whole idea of an umbilical cord just seems problematic to me. Oh, Eric, yes, without a doubt. Pam Anderson from Baywatch. Scott, I appreciate that. Thank you, man. Cowboys can't win, still my team. Hey, you took us twice when it mattered. 2 Super Bowl rings that I wish I could have gotten one. I thought Daisy was hotter than the guy, says Joan. I just remember thinking she was amazing, but she was older than I thought she was. Or maybe I thought she was older than she was. One of those two. And she's aged ridiculously well. All three of them, honestly. Yes, Debbie, I get that. It's just like it always seems to get in the way. My oldest had problems with the cord. Her heart kept dropping because something was going on with the cord. Good night, Sheila. Hey, Sheila Bug, this week you and I didn't fare so well in our Gen X era trivia contest. But before I sign off, I'm glad I saw you to remind me that once I sign off, I will launch this week's Gen X era trivia crack contest. This week, we are going back to truly Gen X trivia. They sent me this, which I think is kind of cool. So you can go to my bio on Facebook or on YouTube, and in about 25 minutes, I will update the link to take you to this week's challenge. Now, if you haven't already downloaded the app, the link will let you download the app and then play. If you've downloaded the app, it should just take you to this week's game, which is going to be 70s, 80s, and 90s era trivia. Now, I can add 60s if anybody would want it, because truly Gen X started in 65. I just like to keep the 60s out because I don't do so well with that, and I also play, and I don't know the answers any more than y'all do. But I'll take a quick poll. Do the 60s go in this week, or do they stay out? While I'm waiting on opinions, it'll be a 3-day challenge. So we'll start tonight. Round 2 will be tomorrow night, and round 3, the final night, will be the night after. You can start the game anytime within those 3 days. Bring it on, and let's see how we do. No to the 60s. Out, 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 out. No 60s. Keep 60s out. Gina says in, but Gina, I think we are way outnumbered, and I think it's going out for this week, which is all right, because even the oldest of us Gen Xers was only 5 by the time the 60s ended. So let's just do 70s, 80s, and 90s, truly just like a Gen X childhood, and it will be live. So the cool thing about it is they've brought me in as a partner. I actually do. It does help support me. So if you guys want a free way to support me and the page, go ahead and play. Let's see if we can get a couple hundred people in. Again, give me 15 minutes to launch the game, then jump right to my bio, hit that link tree, and that's where you'll see the link to the game. Otherwise, you can just go right to my Facebook page, and I'll have a post at the very, very top. That's it for tonight, guys. Appreciate you. Hopefully you guys have the best week ever. I will find you out there on Trivia Crack soon. And let's see how we do. I've not done well the last couple weeks, so I'm going to really hit it hard and see how I do. Some of those questions kick my butt. Even when I know them, I try so hard to click quickly that I make the wrong one. So this week I'm going to focus more on getting it right instead of trying to get it fast. Love you guys. I'll see you over on Trivia Crack. And for those on YouTube, I'll see you probably Tuesday night. Love you too, Joycey. Say hi to Trace for me. Love you guys. Be good. Peace out. Stay rad, everybody. Thank you again to my moderators on YouTube for keeping it clean over there.